So it's very important that the contract's terms are clear exactly what the project scope is going to be about.
Hey guys, I'm AJ.
I'm Renee.
And welcome to TFA Talkshow. Today we have a very inspiring lady. Her name is Siew Ann. Fueled by a long-standing interest in media, Siew Ann ventured into digital marketing while in law school and has not looked back since. Being inspired by the struggles that she and others have faced while freelancing in Singapore, Siew Ann started lancerX to help freelancers turn their craft into sustainable and meaningful full-time businesses. Welcome, Siew Ann.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show today.
What are some checklists freelancers need in their contract?
Okay, so for this question, I like to frame things in terms of the issues that the contract has to address. So I can think of some issues. The first one would definitely be the basic information of the parties. So, for example, like who is the freelancer who's going to be doing this work, who is the client, and if it's a client, maybe you want to state the exact person you're working with or the company name. So this is just to make clear that exactly who are the parties in the contract. So that's the first thing that you should think of. And also you want to be clear on the scope of the project that both parties will be working on together, because maybe the client has one impression of what the project will be like, but then the freelancer thinks, no, actually the project is going to be like this. So in case they don't write this down in the contract, they might be not on the same page. And then later on there's some misunderstanding where the client thinks, oh, I thought you were going to do this for me, and the client says, no, actually I was just going to provide this. And you want to minimize such misunderstandings early on. And another thing very important for freelancers, they'll definitely want to know how they will be paid for this project. So how much will they be paid? How will they be paid? By when do they have to be paid? And how will they receive payment? So is it by cash or bank transfer? So very important for freelancers, payment terms. And other things will be miscellaneous issues such as intellectual property. So who will own the deliverables after they'll be submitted to the client? Because usually the client will own the deliverables because the client is paying for them. But then the freelancer may want to retain a right to say, even though I have given these things to the client, I will still want to retain a right to be able to put these in my portfolio so I can show potential clients. So that's for intellectual property. And also confidentiality, because maybe in the process of doing this project, the client has to provide confidential information to the client. So the client will probably want to say that, okay, I'm giving you this confidential information, but you have to keep it confidential and not disclose it to anyone because it's confidential. And if the freelancer does disclose this confidential information in ways that they are not allowed to do so, then the client may have a right to sue the freelancer for a breach of this term.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And finally, dispute resolution. So of course we hope that the project goes well, but then there might be times where they get a dispute and they need to resort to a third party service to resolve the dispute. So this could be mediation, or it maybe in the very worst case, you have to bring a dispute to court for both parties to resolve the dispute. Okay, so four main things: basic information of the parties to the contract. Second one would be the scope of the project that they will be working on together. Third is payment terms for freelancers. And also fourth would be miscellaneous issues such as IP or confidentiality or dispute resolution. So these are the main things that I think people should include in their contracts in terms of if you want to provide like a checklist.
Okay, yeah. So now when we're talking about like getting sued, it's even though it's not at the back of our minds as freelancers, but when it happens, right, then we all start to panic. Okay, so
Yeah.
how can freelancers and clients protect themselves from getting sued?
So when someone starts to sue somebody, it's usually because the party that is suing thinks that, the other party has not followed the terms of our agreement. That's why I want to sue to get compensation. So obviously, if you are trying to get sued, you will want to stick to the terms of the agreement and not try to do anything funny to give the other party a reason to sue you. But other than that, so it's very important that the contract's terms are clear, because maybe you're doing your very best to stick to the terms of contract, but it is not very clear exactly what is the scope of the agreement. So like what I said just now, maybe the client thought that you were going to provide this as part of the project scope, but then the freelancer is thinking, no, actually I didn't intend to provide this. So it's very good if at the start the contract states comprehensively exactly what the project scope is going to be about to minimize such disputes. And apart from that, so you have a contract, but you also want to make sure it's in writing. because when we talk about contracts, from a legal point of view, actually the contract just refers to the agreement between both parties.
Yep.
It doesn't refer to the piece of paper that the contract is written on. That's sort of like the written record of the contract. So what I'm trying to say is that it's actually possible to create a contract verbally, even if you don't have a piece of paper saying like this is the contract. But the problem with having a verbal contract is that it's verbal, there's no written record of
Yeah.
it. So if maybe like a couple of months down the road, both of you start to forget like, so exactly what did we agree on? I don't remember. And then that leaves room for misunderstandings and disputes. So whoever you want to write a contract, like, you can have it in a formal document or an email or even a text message is fine. But the point is that you need to get a contract down in writing so that you can refer to it later on.
Maybe let's say for freelancers, we want to do our own contract. It's always about like words and a lot of words. You know, sometimes we don't even understand what we are doing the contract for.
Yeah.
And there are also instances that where freelancers and clients, they were just like their form of contract is that via text or via a call. Is that possible to use it as a form of like agreement between two parties, or it still have to be in a black and white contract paper?
So your question is on whether maybe text messages can be used as contracts,
as
even
a
though it's not like
contract.
a formal official
formal,
document.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually that's fine because it's actually not a legal requirement for this kind of contracts to be in writing. So you can still have a contract that's verbally and and it's not a legal requirement that the contract needs to be in a black and white piece of paper. So actually text messages are also fine. Just you need to be careful not to lose these text messages because if your phone gets stolen or lost or your data is erased and then you don't have the records anymore. So text messages are fine, but it's still good if later you can take a screenshot of the text message and keep it somewhere safer in case you need to pull it out.
Right. So that means if let's say in a text message, we will need to have the checklist that you mentioned, and it's always good to screenshot it and then keep it somewhere safe as a form
in case
of like
you lose the text message.
Okay,
just in case you get
got it.
reformatted or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I think freelancers, one thing about especially newbie freelancers, right? Contract invoices are always at the back of their mind. They feel that something that, okay, I get this job, I do it, and I'm done. So basically, what can contracts and invoices do for freelancers?
So for contracts, as we've been discussing so far, it helps to keep both parties on the same page regarding the scope of contract. So both parties know, okay, this is what we agreed on, and then so that we don't try to, so that one party doesn't later say, oh, I thought we were going to do this, but the other parties know actually we didn't agree on this. So it's to keep both parties on the same page regarding the scope of the project and minimize misunderstandings. And invoices are simply to help freelancers get paid. So it's like after you complete a service, you need to bill your client for the work. If you don't give your client this bill, the client can't pay you, or they may not want to pay you unless you actually give them the invoice. So very important, like after if you want to get paid, you need to submit an invoice.
For freelancers especially, we may not know how to, you know, like draft the contract, even with the checklist that you mentioned, everything. So if let's say a freelancer were to hire a lawyer, how much does it cost to basically draft a contract from scratch?
So yeah, this is one of the common questions because I think everyone's very concerned about the cost and they always think that lawyers are very expensive. So I always suggest that if you want to get a lawyer to draft a contract, you should budget at least $3,000. Yeah, so this will be like the starting price. Your final cost might be more or less than that. So depending on how on your needs are, like whether you need more your contract to be more comprehensive or you want a simpler contract or the just the basic terms. But I would think that so even though this figure might sound like a lot, it's actually an investment that could be well spent on because you're getting a professional to draft a contract for you instead of like trying to figure things out by yourself. So more assurance that you're getting a well drafted binding contract.
So when we talk about contract, it's always about client and freelancers, right? So usually the clients will have to give the contract to freelancers, and then the freelancers will have to agree or disagree with the contract. What about if it's possible for the freelancer to give the client the contract or between freelancers? Is there any difference or anything that's a bit, I don't know, we should take note
Like
of?
collaboration, you know, like freelancers collaborate with another freelancers.
Okay, so maybe for clients versus freelancers first, we discuss that situation first. So yeah, you're saying that usually it's the client who gives the contract to the freelancer. So maybe in the process, the client's contract will have some terms that are more favorable to the freelancer that the freelancer may not like so much. So I guess that comes down to your negotiating skills, whether you can convince the client to amend these terms. Of course, it's not easy, depending on how big your client is and how big you are. So if you have more bargaining power, sometimes you can instead give your own contract to the client if you have one prepared, and see whether they are willing to accept your terms. Or if they already have their own version of the contract, maybe you can see how both of you can work together, come up with a contract that both of you are agreeable on. So it's sort of like a mix of your contract and the client's contract, like combined together. But yeah, it really depends on like how much bargaining power that both parties have, and whether who has more influence over the discussion. So that's for client and freelancers. And then as for freelancers versus freelancers, so yeah, again, it comes down to bargaining power, like who is the stronger party in this collaboration. And of course, if you want to have more power, I would suggest that you do have some terms prepared, because if you have nothing prepared, the other side will just give you what they have, and then you might just have to accept it because you don't have your own terms that you want to bring to the table.
Maybe like for those freelancers who are already seasoned, and then that is when they can see the form of investment in getting a lawyer to actually do up a comprehensive one. Because if you're going to be in there for the long run, then you better do a good job. You're going to meet with like bigger clients. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very
much. After you pay the after you pay the lawyer once, right, then you may be able to reuse this contract over many clients. So you don't need to keep drafting a contract from scratch every time you work with a different client. You can just reuse the one that you already have. Provided it still applies, of course.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Thank you so much. I think we've learned a lot that contract is completely doable for freelancers as well. So how can you share with us, our viewers and listeners, how can they connect with you?
Right, so if you were interested to visit my website, lancerX, so I post Singapore-specific resources for freelancers who want to build sustainable and meaningful businesses. So my website URL is lancerx.co, lancerx.co. So that's the name of the website. Don't get mixed up with lancerx.com because that brings you to a different website. And also, I'm going to be launching a course specifically on payment terms for freelancers. So that will also cover in more detail, like what are the payment terms that freelancers should include in their contracts. And if you are interested to check out that course, you can sign up for updates at lancerx.co/PFP launch.
PFP.
Yeah, it stands for Painless Freelance Payments. lancerx.co/PFP launch.
Okay.
Nice. Okay, so for those of you who are watching this and you really like our content, do follow us on our social media platform at the Freelancers Academy on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as Telegram. And for those of you, do check out lancerX to get really good content and get kickstarting your freelancing journey.